founders member of ILEA Middle East. And recently, I think for the current year and the year before, 2019, he is the president of ILEA Middle East. And our second guest, Mr. Adrian Bell, co-founder and executive director, Action Impact Limited Liability Company. Mr. Adrian is the co-founder and executive director of this very active company, Action Impact. He has living in the Middle East for the last 20 years. I believe he speaks Arabic very well now. Maybe we can speak with him Arabic later. His agency is one of the most the credit life experience companies in the Middle East region, and is admired for its creative thinking, talented people, and high standard of delivery, working with top global and regional and international brands like United Nations and Expo 2020. By the way, Expo 2020 is about to announce the final decision of being 2021. Will be postponed, I believe, 1 year. And also like Emirate Nuclear Energy Corporation, Dubai Parks and Resorts, IBM, Google, etc. Also, Adrian also is a founding and past president of ILEA Middle East chapter, which ILEA stands for International Live Events Association. The only recognized association, I believe, when it started. I believe now it's you have competitors or cooperation, hopefully like us and like IAEE, I believe, association, and they have a branch in Riyadh. He was also awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Middle East Event Award for outstanding contribution in 2014. Very nice, and thank you very much for joining us. And our topic today is, I cannot say it's the same topic everybody is talking about, because we would like to hear from our guests what they are doing, how they faced the COVID-19 pandemic, and what is their future plans. So we can share some thoughts and learn something from them. And hopefully every Diwaniya, and inshallah every Tuesday, we will have similar topic with other guests from the region and Saudi Arabia. And to start with, I believe can start with Mr. Paul, and we'd like to give him the mic. If you'd like to speak about the topic, please.
Thank you, Abdul Wahab, for that introduction. Much appreciated. Yes, look, as the current president of ILEA in the Middle East, I'm very aware of the challenges that the COVID-19 is posing for our industry here in this region, not least for the fact that I run a large event services company with over 300 full-time employees. I'm also, as I said, as the president of ILEA, I'm very well, as lots of members have reached out to us as the industry association for advice and for support. I think it's safe to say that this pandemic has caught us all by surprise about the impact it's having. And of course, being in the events industry, events are always the first to be cancelled, and in this case, probably the last to come back, which creates a lot more pressure on our industry as such, because we rely on events that have many participants, many visitors, whether it's an exhibition, whether it's a sports event. We rely on people coming together, either to network, whether it's for a conference, for an exhibition, or for a concert. And that clearly, under the current circumstances, with social distancing having to take absolute priority, having a physical event is going to be extremely challenging for all of us. I would almost go as far to say as no vaccine, no event. And I think with the current, with the announcement of the Olympic Games, which we were working on in Tokyo being postponed to the summer of 2021, with Expo now being pushed back a year, it's very clear that the remainder of 2020 is not positive for our industry. And I think it's important, obviously, to plan accordingly, whatever size of business you are. It's we as an industry need to come together. We need to support each other wherever possible. As a chapter, as an association, we are lobbying the government in the UAE, which is where we are based, and in particular in Dubai. We are lobbying the government authorities for support for our industry, economic support for our industry, where they can help members, help our industry to continue to trade, whether that's a relaxation on licensing fees, visas, rebates, encouraging landlords to support us, whatever it may be. And we have a whole list of initiatives that we are taking up at the moment with the authorities, certainly in the UAE. As is, to be fair, every industry sector. We're not the first, and we won't be the last. I know the hospitality sector is doing exactly the same, and I'm sure other associations representing other industries will be applying the same. And it's just that support that we need to show to our members. There are events and there are things that are still going on. Expo is one of those. And if anybody is involved with Expo, they're very fortunate. They are forging full steam ahead, certainly on the construction phase. So if there's anybody involved in Expo, that is positive. And there is obviously a huge amount of support required in the relief effort. The relief effort that this country needs, the support that the events industry can give. So if you're in, for example, what we do in temporary structures, and you have furniture and you have interiors, the government and the authorities, and particularly the ministries of health, require our services at the moment. And they also require event management skills, because ultimately at the end of the day, it needs people to run these centers. It needs people to organize. I know that many of us in our industry are engaging in a different, and we're not dealing with events here, we're dealing with an emergency situation where we're offering our support and our expertise. And there are opportunities for sure in that sector. But I think the most important thing is planning for the future. And my view is that we won't be returning to what we refer to as a normal world again. And what I really refer to now is what will be the new normal. And it's an opportunity for all of us in the industry to reset our businesses, reset our strategies and our objectives, and try and work out what the new normal will be. What sort of world will we be facing in 2021, and what will an event really be like? I mean, I know recently that most of the large conference organizers, exhibition organizers are now having virtual conferences, as we are tonight, and webinars like this, where they are organizing opportunities now for people to get together and talk on this type of environment. And there's no question that I think as we move slowly into the new normal, the virtual space is becoming so important. The other thing I think we've all learned from this is the ability to work remotely. And actually, how effective have we been as a business or as a company working remotely? And would we ever go back to what was an office environment where everybody worked on top of each other and next to each other? Is that the future? I mean, and that's a big question mark that the companies in our industry need to ask themselves. Working remotely is working, I think, for most businesses. For others, it may not. It may not be the right creative environment. But I know for our business, and we have, as I said, close to 300 employees, working remotely, we've all adapted very well. I haven't seen anybody physically from my office for 6 weeks. I haven't stepped foot inside my office for 6 weeks. But we're functioning. We're functioning every day. We're all working probably harder than we've ever worked before, and we're working efficiently. And I think that's another question that we as an industry, whatever company you work for, you run, is that the future? Is that the new future, or is there a balance between working remotely and working, from an office? So I think this is a time, that if we apply ourselves, we need to really look at how we will run our businesses in the future. But I think, your question, Abdulwahab, was, there was no planning for this. This just came and hit us very, very quickly. And I think we've all had to react. I think, obviously, from my perspective, health and safety is absolutely paramount importance. And so, yes, we've taken the time to sanitize our offices, deep clean our offices once we're not there, to do the same to company vehicles. We've set up procedures where, if we are building an event now, the first thing you do is have your temperature taken, etc. And you go through all these new formalities as we are in the normal walks of life. I went to the supermarket today, and the first thing I had to have taken was my temperature. I also know of a friend of mine who went to the supermarket today, and he happened to be over 60 years of age, and he was told he had to go home, and that he couldn't shop because he was 63 years of age, and that 63-year-olds were not allowed in shopping centres. And he said, well, how on earth am I going to buy my food? He said, well, you're going to have to find somebody between the age of 12 and 60 to buy your food. It's a very different world. And I think also, when we eventually go back to work, and I don't foresee that particularly here in the UAE. I know there are rules that 30% of people can go back, and they're encouraging, or not encouraging, I should say. But if you do need to go back, and it's a necessity to go back, they're restricting that to 30% of the workforce. But I think the message is, if you don't have to go back, continue to work from home. And I think that's exactly what we will be doing for the next month. And it's working effectively. So look, I think, Abdulwahab, I mean, I'm not an expert on COVID-19. We have adapted. I'm listening to many of our members who phone me for support. I think the most important thing from my perspective is that I'm available to talk to people. I think just a conversation that sometimes with somebody can give them reassurance, a bit of confidence, maybe some advice. And I think that's what people that, are reaching out to people who've been in the industry a long time, like I have, just for some comfort in many ways, and a friendly chat when they're sitting at home wondering what the hell they're going to do to get out of this. It's also coming together. A lot of companies have come together. So, where if we have some work, we're trying to use other people, the staff from another company, et cetera, et cetera. So we are trying to support the industry wherever we possibly can. And we as a company have been very fortunate to be building one of these temporary medical facilities. And on that particular project, we have taken on freelancers. We are using every possible company that needs the support that we are giving, who can apply, whether it's a carpenter, a joint, an electrician, a plumber, a project manager. We've reached out and we've spread it through as many companies as we can to try and support the industry and also de-risk what is very difficult at the moment to deliver an event under these very challenging circumstances. So look, there are some positives. I mean, I'm sure you would probably say, when do I think it's going to end? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wish I did. I think I talk to Adrian regularly. We had a crystal ball. We'd love to know when it's going to end. But I think realistically, my advice to anybody in this industry is plan for the worst until the end of the year. I think Q1 next year I would hope we'll see some relief, but I don't see much. I think it'll get better in Q4, but I don't think it will truly recover until international travel and a vaccine or some medicine can help. And I think then that will take the rest of this year, sadly.
Okay, so in your company, did you do any kind of cutoff of expenses or staff? You just get rid of them or something? How did you decrease the cost?
Yeah, I mean, look, we decreased the cost base because the income is either considerably disappeared or disappeared completely. So I think any company who is managing to maintain the same level of cost is either very, very fortunate or very naive. I mean, moving, because this is not a 2-week or a 2-month pandemic. This is going to go on for the next 4 or 5 months minimum, if not longer. So yeah, we took that step, Abdul Wahab, in March. Actually, in the middle of March, there was a lot of nervousness, I think, amongst any company, but whether people were going to have a job or not. We didn't want to make people redundant. We didn't want to let people go because we knew it would be very challenging. We're all expats, fundamentally. Most of us are expats, and they couldn't get back to their own countries. And if they did go back to their own countries, obviously there was nothing. This was a global pandemic, not just restricted to here. And obviously there was no government support. So in the UK, for example, we have a business, and we were able to what they call furlough 200 staff, which is 200 people are now sitting at home not working, but 80% of their salaries are being paid by the government. Now, obviously, that facility that is not available to us here. So what we did, the only way we could do was to offer we made a pay cut. And we started with a small one in March. And to be honest with you, the majority, I mean, everyone, I haven't had anybody of all our employees, I had emails and phone calls to say, thank you, we are very grateful that we still have a job. We're very grateful that at least we're getting part of our salary. We can live on that. Thank you very much. And actually, it was very well received. It is voluntary, of course. It's absolutely voluntary. You can't force anybody to take a pay cut. They have to sign, and it has to be voluntary, and that's how the system works, and that's absolutely fair. and everybody from our organization has happily volunteered to take a pay cut. So we took a pay cut from March, and that will probably run through to, I think, till September, October. You know, we look at it every month, but I think it will run through to the end of the summer. And that pay cut can range from 10% through to 50%, depending on how much somebody earns. In our company, we were fortunate enough to gone for the lesser end. We haven't had to cut down to 50%, but we range from 10% to 30%, and that's probably, hopefully, where we can stick at. But obviously, it's different for every company. In terms of the other things you can do, if you have a friendly and a good relationship with your landlord, whether it's a commercial or residential, some landlords are being very amenable. I'm not saying they're wavering or, you know, or their rent, but they're certainly deferring rent checks. And in my experience, you know, landlords are deferring and to the end of the summer or whatever. And if you can achieve that, that's a sensible thing to do. There's discounts on DWA already, and it's a case of managing the fixed costs. Obviously, things, you know, in terms of capex and investments, they're all on hold. So yeah, and obviously we're not traveling and we're not going out. So actually, it's remarkable when you're working from home and you're on, let's say, you know, 70% of your salary. You can survive if you're not going out and enjoying the highlights of Dubai. But yeah, it's a necessity. I think I haven't spoken to anybody in our industry who hasn't taken that action. And some have unfortunately had to actually make people redundant or unpaid leave or something like that. But it's the first thing that everybody had to do.
Right. Thank you very much for your time with us and your thoughts. Just to, because of the time we have, I would like to give the mic to Mr. Adrian. If you would like to turn on the mic, or I will try to do it for you, I believe.
I think I'm alive and kicking, so
okay.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you, Abdul Wahab.
Right, welcome.
And thank you for the very gracious introduction. I mean, for those of you who don't know me, I was next to Abdul Wahab's side only a few weeks ago when it all seems like a very distant memory now, when I was in the kingdom with Abdul Wahab, introducing myself to members, future members, friends and colleagues. And it seems a lifetime ago now, but I'm not going to repeat what Paul has said, because of course we're both in the same industry and we've shared the same crisis plans across the industry. What I can do though is sort of share my side of my story and what happened to our company and how we reacted, which of course is very similar to Paul's. And also I'm going to share with you sort of my outlook of the next 6 to 12 months. But we, like every business in the industry, it hit us like a ton of bricks. Probably around end of the first week, second week of March. Q2 is a really important quarter for us. We, like all of us, are in a very seasonal business. So having a good order book in Q2, so to speak, is important. And we saw that order book evaporate in the space of about 8 days. It went from pretty good to almost zero in single-digit days. It was quite extraordinary. It felt like a tsunami of disaster just rushing in across the business. And that was both government sector and private sector. So we work in both sectors. So private sector, we work with companies like IBM. We are a retained agency of record for IBM right across the Middle East. We work with Google, and we work with much larger government companies as well, like ADNOC, who are, I'm sure you will know, a big oil company in Abu Dhabi. And it was universal across the board. Everything just, the polite way of saying it is postponed, but actually what they meant was cancelled, but everybody postponed. And as I say, it all happened within the space of a few days. we then reacted very, very quickly. And in fact, Paul and I and a few other colleagues, we all shared the same crisis talk and shared intellect between our respective companies. And the first thing we did, of course, was to look at costs right across the business. We're an agency, so unlike Paul, my business is people, primarily in the design and creative services and in project management services. So my business is people. So the two biggest overheads we carry are the property we dwell in, our commercial property, and the people we employ. So if you're going to cut costs, the first thing you've got to look at is cutting that overhead. So we, again, like Paul, went through exactly the same process. And in the space of about 2 weeks, we reduced our overhead by over 50%. It was very serious because when you are faced with the prospect of losing your entire revenue in Q2 and a long summer with Ramadan and summer months, you've essentially got zero revenue for at least 6 months. And we had to make some very, very quick decisions. So we had to do exactly what Paul and his business did. We went through a process of some unfortunate terminations, which were very, very painful. Only a few, I hasten to add. Some pay cuts, and we got through it. And by the grace of God, actually, everybody was very, very understanding. Everybody understood, everybody was supportive, and remains that way today. I, like Paul, share the same outlook on how long do I think we'll be sustaining that position for. It's at least 6 months, which is what we told everybody. We said we don't foresee things even getting back to the new normal until September, and normal 2021 at the earliest. And again, using Paul's words, until I think there is a vaccine, I don't think the normal will return. We will be in this slightly curious, unpredictable world of the new normal towards the end of this year, and then sustained for some time until there is a vaccine. So, so during these weeks and days that go by, we of course are taking stock of the situation, and our expectations of the immediate future are changing every day. Our clients have no answers at the moment because they don't know what they're doing next week, let alone next month or next quarter. And this is right across the board. So what I can tell you they're doing is they're still meeting. They still want to have meetings. They still want to have conferences. They still actually want to have some form of exhibition. So we've been focusing intensely on the world of virtual events, and our whole digital proposition has completely transformed. It's gone from 10% of the business to about 75% of the business. And we're now hosting and producing events for companies like IBM entirely digitally. Now, that's not a webinar. These are, we have an event next week where we have 40 speakers in 40 different locations behind their desks like me tonight, all being brought together in one collective meeting space. So we are having green screens installed in people's houses, small green screens with small lighting kits, lavalier microphones, and we're going through a similar process of speaker training, lighting them properly, but remotely. And it's a new experience for us because coordinating and producing live experiences, but digitally and remotely, are areas of huge discovery for us. But you know, the clients are loving it at the moment. It's very novel, it's very unusual. They get lots and lots of engagement because it's the new thing. But it's completely undiscovered territory at the moment, and the technology and the platforms are popping up day by day at the moment. So we've just started to gather some experience in that area, and we're now producing about one every other week at the moment, and we have one very significant one next week. At the same time, we're also using the time to nurture and grow new partnerships and new relationships. Many of those for us are in the digital domain at the moment. And, you we're using that time to build those new relationships and those new alliances. And everybody is eager and keen to participate. So those are two key things that we're doing at the moment. The other big area for us, which Paul mentioned earlier, is there's going to be, even as we emerge into the new normal, so to speak, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on health and safety. Even socially distanced events, when they come back, perhaps towards the end of the year, there's still going to be a big emphasis on social distancing, etiquette, hygiene. These are going to be really big areas of even producing the most simplistic and socially distanced conference where people are literally sat 2 meters apart. So there's another big area of our operations team are looking at, everything from sanitization tunnels to all sorts. So those are big focuses for us. That's 3 big areas for us that we're looking at the moment, because the event and exhibition world for us, as we have known it for the last 15 years, we don't see even remotely emerging until the latter end of Q4.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like actually. Okay, my mic, you can hear me, I believe.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. I like what you said about regarding turning into this virtual meeting in a different way, more professionally, make it more efficient, and to have the big companies working more smoothly and easily and without disconnecting and bad connection and things like that. What some of us sometimes facing it during the webinars and things like that. So this is one of the way that how you came over something and you make also some business out of it for your clients.
Yes, I mean there's quite a few platforms out there, and I get an email, perhaps like everybody else on this this session today. I get an email every day from a new virtual event company that I've never heard of. But there are 3 or 4 really quite serious and well-established platforms. But the truth is, nobody's mastered this area yet, because the demand for virtual events has been lackluster at best. And now there is an overwhelming desire, an overwhelming demand for them. We've been dealing with a company based in the US and India called Virtual Fairs, or VFairs. And they were telling me only a few days ago, they would get 300 inquiries a quarter prior to COVID-19. Mm-hmm. They're now getting 3,000 a day. It's completely overwhelmed their business. They cannot cope, obviously. Nobody could cope with that level of inquiry. And consequently, there are lots of virtual platforms popping up. But my advice to anybody is, there is as much, if not more, organization involved in whatever platform you decide to choose with your client. There's a lot more organization than meets the eye. The quality of the way you produce the experience is similar. It's just there's no more touchy-feely anymore. It's all online, remote, and digital, and it's a completely new discipline for us. Mm-hmm. So we're working with 2 or 3 different platforms at the moment, but there are one in particular which we're working with IBM on at the moment, which is actually the most simplistic approach, but actually the best of all. And I can talk to any of your members about this, perhaps offline. But my advice to everybody is, virtual events deciding to do a virtual event is just the start of a big learning curve. There's a lot to it. The way it is produced, the way it is executed, the way that you cue speakers who are, on the other end of a city or in another country, the way they're lit, the way they interact with their webcam, the way they are mic'd up, the way that the audio processing works between speakers. There's a lot to it. And it's a big voyage of discovery for us.
Okay. طيب, I have a question in my mind. Let's say for both of you, but since you are already on the mic, now what do you think? In my feeling, with lockdown, all this kind of period, maybe it will go farther a few months more. And as a human being, you get really very bored by staying at home all the time. And I always say, thank God that we are safe and we are healthy and all these kind of things. But you still come back to the going out. This is what you used to. This is the human being. They have to go around. They have to entertain themselves. They cannot stay in one mood all the time. So do you think when this come to the end, that the event industry will boom very high because of the very big demand on people are really coming out of the jail to the entertainment part and events and have fun and going to meeting and doing everything every day? Just, do you think will be a boom, or we still going to be in a very conservative way of working and doing events?
I guess my answer to that, Abdul Wahab, and it's a good question, is, and Paul indicated this a little earlier in his part of the conversation, was I think until there is a vaccine that is universally available, that boom and trigger point is unlikely to be a boom. It's unlikely to be instantaneous. I think, you know, we are social creatures at heart, so that desire is not going to go away. But I think we will all be exercising degrees of caution, perhaps marginally increasing over the months to come, but it won't be a snap. It won't be an instant change. But I think when that vaccine is introduced and it is universally available, and we'll all be in the queue, I'm sure, at that point, there could be an extraordinary boom,
Yeah, I think I would absolutely agree with what Adrian has said. And as I said it before, no vaccine, no event. And I think in a good example, Abdul Wahab, is of this is we were all under 24-hour curfew here in Dubai for 3 weeks up until the start of Ramadan. And we had to get permission. You know, we had to apply for permission if we wanted to go to the supermarket. We were under 24-hour curfew. And then on Friday, with the first day of Ramadan, the government relaxed the rules and regulations, and we no longer needed permission to go out. And we no longer, and we could go out and exercise, and we could go for a walk, and we could have more people in a car, etc. And everybody that I have communicated or spoke to like this since that announcement 4 days ago, and I've asked, have you been out? Have you been, you know, gone to a restaurant? Have you been to the beach? Have you gone out and been social? Have you seen your friends? Have you had a dinner party? And everybody, everybody has said, we're still at home. We haven't been out. It's made no change. And the reason is because they still feel uncomfortable about stepping out, because there isn't a vaccine, there isn't medicine, and people feel and know that and you just have to put on the television, you know, that it is growing, you know, across the world. And apart from China, that's been through it for the last 5 months, you know, we're all into the first couple of months, and people are nervous, and so I think, to answer your question, I think Adrian's absolutely spot on. I don't think anybody is going to want to mass participate in an event, be it a conference, a concert, people are not going to want to be that close in an environment until there's some sort of treatment for this horrible flu, they call it, but it's more than a flu, I think. I mean, certainly from friends of mine who've had it, it's a brutal virus. If you get it, it's not pleasant. You're very lucky if you get a very mild version. And I guess fortunately most people do get a mild version, but we don't hear about the mild versions. We only hear about the people who've struggled. So I think no, I don't think there's going to be a mass rush back to going to watch a football match and there's 40,000 people in a stadium. I really don't believe that. What you might find at Manchester United or something is 50,000 people with a mask on that's got Manchester United written across their mouths or something. And somebody actually contacted me a couple of days ago and said, "What about branded masks?" Because I think that may well be the new thing. And I think particularly if you're, a football supporter, it may be. I don't know. I mean, until there is as Adrian says, a medicine or a vaccine, it will never be. It will never be the same. And then we do have that, then there will be I'm sure there'll be an ease back into that. But people will always feel apprehensive. As I said, this is going to be the new normal. It's the new normal. And it's going to be very interesting to see how we as an industry adapt to that, whether we are a concert promoter, what we do, build events, or Adrian, creates events. It's going to be very interesting. We've all got to adapt.
Okay. All right. I think we come to the end of our discussion, and we leave it to some question, or if somebody would like to interact with us. I have one question here from Arwa saying, are the virtual events make money?
That's up for Adrian.
Well, you can ask me that in a couple of months and I'll tell you. I mean, it depends on the virtual event, but the fees we're charging for the virtual event, the management fees, are similar to those of managing a regular live event. It's similar. In fact, as I was hinting at earlier, we've actually underestimated the amount of time because it's a voyage of discovery. Our client, IBM, aren't interested in that. They're quite happy to continue paying the fees that we are paying, that they've agreed to, I should say. But I don't see, as far as management of the experience is concerned, is much different. In terms of creating the design level, the modeling and the visualization, the drawings, of course, that's all gone, because those are rendered models that are created by other companies who either own the platforms or operate the platforms. So there are areas that are larger in value for us, and there are areas that are smaller, which is how we're having to morph our proposition for virtual events. So it's a little bit, it's a long-winded way of saying it swings and roundabouts.
All right. Sharaf Dabbar from King Abdullah Economic City in nearby Jeddah is asking, I think you can see the question.
Yes, which platforms?
Yeah.
Well, the two big ones are called, one's called On24, and the other one I talked about earlier called VFairs. You can just Google these quite easily, and I'll give a list to Abdul Wahab as well of others, and there's literally dozens and dozens now. But the two big ones, we just worked with VFairs last week. Look, my personal opinion is the well-established, reliable platforms are a bit last year, if that makes sense. And the ones to really be looking at are the ones that are emerging through demand of clients today. We're actually working with a local company here called BUT, and I can give Abdul Wahab their details. And they've come up with a it's one of the most innovative solutions for a virtual event I've come across. And they very cleverly have technology that piggybacks on the back of established conferencing platforms like Zoom, and it cleverly augments webcam content, and then uses the established and robust platforms of Skype or Zoom or WebEx or any of those platforms. And that's a really clever solution. And he's locally based here, and we showed it to IBM 2 or 3 days ago, and they loved it. So there are technologies emerging right now, and it sounds perhaps a little unfair of me to say, but my experience so far is the really established, robust solutions are actually a bit dated, because they've come from an area where the demand for these was not that apparent. But now there's extraordinary demand. You've got new emerging solutions that are actually very interesting.
Okay.
So Abdul Wahab, I can forward on some details.
Yeah, please.
And you can share that with the membership.
Will be helpful for all our members and who is interested in making some money during this time. Okay. Yeah. Do we have any other questions or any other thoughts to? I have a question from someone by WhatsApp sent me saying, what is your advice for anybody would like to enter to the event business?
Do you mean, is that question about entering the event business today?
Yeah, yes.
Or entering it in about a year?
No. I believe before 1 year, I will advise him don't enter. And now I will not answer this.
My advice to anybody entering the event industry today is wise up on your digital tools, because digital is everything at the moment. So your online understanding, use of digital tools is very, very important. Very, very important. Yeah. That's from an agency point of view. Paul's likely to have a different point of view.
Yeah, look, from our side as an event services, I mean, there are not going to be many major events anywhere in the world for the next 6 months anyway that are going to require really a great degree of event services, because we're not in the digital space. We're the physical side, and most event services. So when I talk about event services, I'm talking about lighting and staging and design and scaffolding and tents and seating and all the components, the physical components that come that are required. Catering, hospitality, you name it. But it's a good, it's a good opportunity to take your time, pick which sector you would like to be in. So, there will be opportunities to train and to look at what sector you want to join. But I would not honestly say it would be a great time from our side to be joining this industry for the next 6 to 8 months. I don't know whether people will actually be hiring, because to be honest with you, they won't be designing or building anything. That's the sad situation, and the honest answer.
Okay, great. Sharaf is asking again about to Adrian, is like virtual concert or stand-up comedy It could be something to make money during these days. Why not? I believe. What do you think?
Yes, why not? Why not? I think you just have to. The thing about stand-up comedy, laughter is part of the experience. The collective laughter of 100 people in a room, the infectiousness of that experience is part of the experience itself.
That's right.
Watching a comedian remotely, even with great virtual event technology, is a different experience. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but one of the great challenges of virtual events and video and audio technology is, ironically, the video technology is ahead and audio processing is still not, everybody has been on Zoom and Skype and WebEx. Nobody has really perfected really high quality audio processing yet. So when, even on a Zoom call, when two people are talking at the same time, you get a lag and an interruption. So imagine that multiplied by 100 people all laughing at the same time. Even if you could hear them all, it's a very different experience. So you've really got to think about virtual events. It's a different event. I'm stating the obvious, but translating, a comedy show, stand-up comedy, into a virtual event has consequences in the way it's produced. It's a different experience.
You are 100% right, because the environment and the way that even the stand-up comedian interact with the people in front of him, makes really big difference for his reaction and his action and during the show. If this is not available, maybe he will not be really that comedian, and it will be sitting up comedy. Okay, yeah. And there is actually, I don't know if you heard about what happened before Ramadan. I think 1 week, the Ministry of Culture in Saudi Arabia, they perform an Instagram live concert for Muhammad Abdu and some of the artists. I tried to watch it, but I was not lucky to get, because I'm not good in Instagram actually. So I don't know, but I heard from my colleagues that it was not really that successful. Because I believe even concert, you need, it's called live concert, but to be virtual concert, it's still like what you said, all this technology at the moment is not giving the opportunity to be really like actual. And in the end, it's still the human being, I don't think they will feel comfort to watch something live like that and be happy to pay money. This is the point, is to pay money and watch it. Maybe we don't yet feel it's the right way, or it's the substituting the live concert. Sharaf is there. What is
he's saying Abdul Wahab, he's saying that we need to be innovative. We need to innovate, and I think my final message to the industry would be is that this is an opportunity to think outside of the box. This is an opportunity to be creative, and to think, taking into consideration what we know and how we're behaving now, and we're at home and we're communicating like this, and how we can come up with ideas that encourage people to be to observe social distancing and to feel comfortable, but also to enjoy themselves. And I'll give you a clever idea that came up the other day. I'll share it with you. I mean, I think it's a clever idea. It's not unique, but it's a clever idea. And I think it's something, and it's thinking outside of the box. And one of those was, at the moment, all our cinemas are closed. we can't go to the cinema. I know in Saudi Arabia you've just launched and had cinemas, but they're all closed at the moment. But what about outdoor cinema? You remember the old days when you could go and watch a movie with your car, put up a big screen? You know, what a great idea. You know, what they should be doing now is setting up outdoor cinemas, you know, and you sit there and you don't get out of your car. You know, you're observing social distancing, whoever's in your car is with you, and you watch the movie, you put the speaker inside your car, you enjoy it, you're out, you can feel people around you in their cars, so you feel there's an atmosphere because there are other people there, but you're not next to them, and you're not going to catch anything from them. You're not going to worry about them because they're sitting in their car, and you're enjoying the latest movie. And you can have people coming to the car who with the right attire and serving you popcorn and soft drinks, you know, and that's an opportunity for somebody to do that. I think that's a great idea. And I think particularly in Saudi Arabia, you know, why not? You've got lots of space. All these car parks in front of shopping malls that are now empty because nobody's going into the malls because they're closed. You can set up outdoor entertainment, where people do not have to get out of their car. So anyway, that's just thinking outside of the box, being creative.
That's right. Actually, we came up to the end of our meeting or webinar today or tonight. Here is a bit midnight in Dubai and 11 in Saudi Arabia. I would like to thank Paul and Adrian for being our first guests in our weekly Diwania. Thank you very much, guys. And thanks very much for Sami Aulia, who is our technical support on this platform. And thanks for everybody watching us. And please follow us on the social media, and let's be in contact virtually, at least during this time, and hopefully physically in the near future. And we are really be always positive, not in COVID-19, but in life, and in hoping this will come to the end, inshallah, very soon. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your watching and coming and to us, and have a great night, inshallah, and stay home and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Stay safe, everyone. Good night.
Stay safe, yeah. Good night. Thank you.